morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Renew podcast. I'm your host, Kristen Andre, and back with us again today, we have lifestyle expert and my good friend, Lisa Washington. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Today, we have another really good topic, really good, because we talked about relationships, we talked about communication when we had you on the show before. Today, we're talking about motherhood.
Yes.
And particularly the changing state of motherhood.
Yes.
And this is one that, as friends, you and I have had this discussion a lot. Because, girl, I am not going to lie to you. This has been a challenge for me. And I'm using challenge as that's probably a soft word,
That's
right?
a very soft word.
It's a very soft word for it.
Yeah.
Because when I started talking to you about all the issues, and I've talked to some of my girlfriends, it seems like all of us that are parents, and I know we're talking about motherhood because we're moms, but I think this applies to dads to some extent.
Yes.
But it's changed. The role of the mom and like the parent-child dynamic over the years is so different than when we grow up. And I mean, in the defense of the kids, it's a different society. They've got social media.
Exactly.
They've got all this. But motherhood is tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. And I don't know that we talk about this enough, which is why I'm so excited to have you here, because there are the funny meme accounts and everything that talks about motherhood, but most of the time you see the little kids, and that's the joke, is you'll see them in their little bows and their pictures and the family pictures. And we're not talking about the fact that we yelled at our kids in the car on the way to the photo shoot and that they weren't sitting up straight and they weren't doing all that. So, I mean, girl, help us.
I know.
This is a tough challenge for so many people.
It is. It is one for me. My kids are 35 and 21, and I have 11-year-old granddaughter and a 7-year-old, 8-year-old.
He just had birthday. Yeah.
And it's funny. I was talking, and I'm sure I'll get emotional on this one.
I can get you a tish.
We probably need a tish or two. But I was talking to a mother about just this stage of motherhood. I have 2 adult children and 2 small grandchildren that live with us. And I said, girl, this is the rebirthing of motherhood. I feel like I am being reborn in motherhood in every stage that my children have ever gone in.
You used that term, the rebirthing of motherhood, with me on the phone.
Yes.
And the other day, and I was like, yeah, I mean, it did. When you said it, it was just like, oh,
yeah,
it is.
It is. Do you not feel those?
And there's so many rebirthings, and there's so many stages.
Yes. And it's funny because I think about when we had our children. And there will be a book on this. So
yes,
yeah,
I know Lisa's got some great books coming.
But the thing it made me think about is when I said the rebirth of motherhood, I thought about me going into labor with my boys. I thought about the anticipation, the contractions, the birth, and I had both of them naturally, and all I had to go through, even if you had C-section, however you had it. All your body had to go
my
through.
labors and deliveries were like boom, boom.
Yeah.
I'm efficient to say. My longest labor was, you're going to hate this, an hour.
No, you're going to hate mine.
Mine was 1 hour long total.
Mine was 7 minutes.
Oh, well, my last one was 5 pushes. I had 1 hour, and then I had 20 minutes, and then my third was 5 pushes. So like 5 seconds. Yeah, I'm efficient.
Yeah.
I'm efficient.
I'm talking about all that stuff beforehand.
That was easy. All right, I will say that the labor and delivery was way easier than all this craziness that has come since then.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. That's, you can, if you have kids long enough, you can say that for anybody,
Yeah.
even if you was in labor for 2 days.
Yep.
Because all the stuff they're going to bring you. They probably get out 2-day labor in middle school.
Yeah.
If you had to compare 2-day labor plus them being in middle school.
Oh my gosh. So when you think of motherhood and this rebirth, like what changes are you seeing? Because your kids, you have adult kids.
Yeah, I have adult
I have
kids.
adult to middle school. I have middle school to adult. I have middle school, high school, and law school. So
Yeah.
I have 1 actual adult and 2 more that think they are.
Well, that in itself is something.
Yes.
Well, when I think of rebirthing, what I thought about the labor pains, and I thought about the pains of motherhood. When my children get to a place in their lives where they're like, yeah, I'm good in that area. You can go ahead and put that baton down. Don't need that anymore.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? And what I'm doing is I'm finding, well, who am I as a mother in this stage of his life? And also I'm finding, who am I as a mother in this stage of my life? Because we don't do that.
No.
We just churn in motherhood until we dead.
Yeah.
Like, no,
Yeah.
I need to come to a place within myself and within my children. Who are they? And what role do I, because I'm always be a mother.
Right.
But where is my place? Where is my part in motherhood? And that's where the rebirth of motherhood came from. Because it's a rebirth. I've noticed that throughout my kids' life, I've had a rebirth every part. When they went to middle school, high school, college, as an adult, them going through their own relationships with the opposite sex and being in relationships and how much they want to hear from me about it. So that's what I mean when I say a rebirth of motherhood.
And I think that's so true. I had a discussion with my kid, and they do not know I'm saying this, so I apologize if y'all are listening. But they told me recently in our airing of the grievances meeting that, we were having a discussion. I'm like, it's, you don't get it. It's because I'm a mom. Like once you're I use the, heaven forbid, once you're a mom, you'll understand phrase. I don't know if you've ever uttered that from your mouth. I'm going to assume most moms have. And I was quickly met with, but we do understand. We do know what it's like to be a mom. And instead of the mature response, which would have been, well, tell me why you feel that way. And you have a lot of insight. It was like, no, you don't. You haven't birthed the child. No one lived in your tummy apartment. I immediately went to, you don't get it. You don't get it. And and I didn't until I talked to you. I was like, maybe I need to take a step back, which I often do. I often do need to take a step back. Not that I often take one, but I was her. I was just like,
I know.
What do you mean? You know what it's like? You don't know. You don't know what moms do, what we sacrifice, what we think, how our brains are on 24/7 worrying about these little tiny creatures who sometimes make bad decisions.
Yes.
So it is. So when you say rebirth of motherhood, I'm like, I think I rebirth motherhood every day.
Yes. Labor pains of that every day. Well, if your kids are listening to this, they may be on Miss Lisa's side. Because about what I'm about to say.
Stop listening, kids. Stop listening. Turn it off. Other kids can listen, just not mine.
It's what is it? Recycling of parenthood. There's rebirth and recycling.
Okay.
I'm like basically writing a book on your podcast. But I think as we recycle what we're given as what our parents gave us. My mom said to me, until you become a mother, you would not understand this. Was my mother correct? She was.
Yes.
She was absolutely correct. I became a mother. I'm like, yeah, I get it.
And
so I've said that to my kids. Once you become a parent, you'll totally get this. But that is not the thing I should have said to them. Because those situations are not about them becoming a parent. Those situations, and here's a rebirth of motherhood. What we're talking about is our individual relationship with this person. That's not 12 anymore. Maybe they're 21. Maybe they're 35. And there are things that they've experienced in their lives that we know about and that we do not know about.
And that's what's hard is there are so, because I think about my experience and what I know of this, but you're right. There are things we don't know.
We just don't. And
there are things we don't want to know.
And how they processed it. How our kids process something. And so I decided I'm not going to say that to my kids anymore. Well, one is already a parent, but I'm not going to say to my kids, well, when you become a parent, then you understand what I'm going through. Because what that does, it shuts down what they're going through in that moment. And what we're going through together in this mother-child relationship. And for me to introduce what's happening right now with us.
Yeah.
What's happening right now with you. And I want to be here for that.
I get that. I think you're spot on. It's so hard to communicate. I mean, it is. It's hard because there's a letting go.
Yeah.
That's the tough part.
Yeah.
It's because you want to. And I think for most moms, not all moms, but for most moms, I feel like I'm coming at it from the right place. And honestly,
yes, you are.
During our airing of the grievances, I know they were coming. We were trying to find a middle ground, but it's so tough because you don't know how to help them anymore. And they don't want your help. And you're like, well, why do you not want my help? Because I have so much knowledge, and it's not that I have knowledge. It's just I have knowledge of all the mistakes I made.
Right.
And I want to protect my little babies from those mistakes, even though my babies are, driving cars and going to law school. So, it's tough. So with the rebirth, I think you're right. Okay. Kids, you can keep listening because she's right. I shouldn't say that, but I think the reason I said that's because I didn't, you don't know what else to say.
You don't like when I said it's like I want my sons to understand. Well, the reason why I'm doing it is because I'm your mother and I love you.
Right.
And this is what mothers do.
Yes.
Because we love you. But that's not what it's about.
I know it, but we do love them.
We do love them. So since the fact that we love them, then we need to learn how to communicate with them.
Like we talked about on our last show.
And get away from that whole mothering and parenting part. Especially even when they're small. When I'm communicating with my grandchildren, I can communicate with them like, well, I'm your grandma. That's why I said that.
Yes.
But at the same time, I'm looking at them as a human and as an individual, and I'm respecting my truth, but I also have to respect what's true for them. That's how we connect.
All right, so let's dive into that for a little bit. I agree with you, and you and I both grew up in a generation where we're both from the South. Mm-hmm. We were both we grew up in the because I said so generation. Yes, let's be real. Because I said so. Because Mama said so. Because this is what you do. I mean, and that's just how we grew up.
Yeah.
And this is one of the other things that kids told me. It's like, just because you're the parent doesn't mean you've earned respect. It doesn't mean we have to listen. It doesn't mean, that you're right. And that is such in stark contrast to how we grew up.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we got whooped. I mean,
we did.
There were spanking spoons and we got whooped at school. I don't know if kids know this today. So if you guys are listening and you're younger, the principal, I did not get sent to the principal, but my brother may have some experience. The principal had a paddle. Do you remember this?
I remember.
Principals had paddles.
Yeah.
And if you got sent to the principal's office, you got spanked. So not only were your parents spanking you if you didn't do what they said or didn't agree, the principal was spanking you.
Yeah.
So it is such a stark contrast today. And I'm not saying one is right and the other is wrong.
Right.
It's just that the dichotomy is so far apart.
Yes.
That meeting in the middle, I feel, is difficult and challenging for both sides. I will admit that.
No, I agree with you on that.
So I feel like I'm trying to come a little, and I need the kids to come a little, which they probably are. But then how do you bridge that gap from what we grew up with,
right?
Even if it wasn't right, to now?
You said it. How you bridge that gap is what we grew up with. What we grew up with, not what they grew up with. They did not grow up with what we grew up with.
Right.
They don't even grow up.
And their kids aren't going to grow up with what they grew up with.
And then not even the same world. We have to understand the world that our kids are growing up in. And let me tell you something here. As mothers, as parents, as individuals, we still have to know our boundaries. We still have to be respected as human beings as well.
Absolutely.
So just as you want respect, just like you say as your child say to you, well, you just don't just get respect is earned. That's a human thing. That goes both ways.
Yes.
We're not playing one side to anything because you have found some liberation in communication within who you are. I think that's definitely our kids' generation has done it, which I think is amazing. But you have to also know that is also expected on both sides of the coin.
Yes.
And I communicate that with my children. I make sure I give my children that. And I'm not perfect at it. And we don't need to be because we are human beings. But at the same time, we need to be open that this goes on both sides. So that's how we bridge the gap with the consciousness of, well, it's not how we grew up. Right. How you brought your kids up is totally different than how your parents brought you up.
Definitely.
So because of that,
my parents have pointed that out.
Right. And because of that,
it's because you brought them up.
Right. But you get a new product.
Yes.
Because you brought them up.
It's a new model.
And they'll get a new model when they have their children. But at the same time, as a mother, you have to have those boundaries for yourself. It's just not just a run over.
Right.
Mom ways, how she was brought up. Like, let's respect each other and come together.
Well, and I think it's both. I think I do feel the kids need to respect the adult. I think the kids need to respect anybody. I think adults need to respect anybody. There needs to be a mutual respect in any relationship to have. Now, I may be a little different. I will respect somebody until they lose that. So I'm not a you have to earn my respect type of person. That's just me.
Yeah.
I'm a, you know what? I'm going to assume you're a good human.
Yeah.
Until you break it, then you lose the respect.
Yeah.
So I'm not, now you lose it, you got to earn it back. But
Right.
I'm not a person that's going to say you have to earn. I'm like, I'm going to give it to you. You can get it taken away super quick.
Right.
But I don't know. There's, it's just different. It's been challenging. And I know when you're talking about the rebirth of motherhood, the challenges I've had with my children, the challenges my girlfriends and my guy friends have had with their children, it seemed there's so many different ones at different stages.
Yeah.
You know, so it's, when you say rebirth, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's like it's when they're little. It's when, you know, we let them go to a sleepover for the first time. I mean, I've got friends with teenage children, they won't let stay home by themselves. I mean, everybody's in different stages with this.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're rebirthing so much that it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it can be. I think the thing about it is that it's not about rebirthing every moment in our children's lives or even rebirthing every stage. This is really about us as parents. It's not even about the kid.
Do you think it's about setting expectations for us, or what is it about for us?
I think when I think about rebirth of motherhood, as I said before, I simply like, Lisa, where is my place here? And how can it be healthy for myself and for my child?
That's a good question. That's a very good question to ask yourself. So what is my place and how can I be? And that's a challenge. I will say personally, I will bear it out there that that's been a challenge for me, is to figure out where the place is, because so many times in my head or in my heart, I'm going, oh my God, I so know what they need to do right here, because I have made the same bonehead mistakes myself, and I'm trying to protect them.
Yeah,
but that's not always the play, and that's what I think is hard. That's why I think where my head goes to when I say you don't know what it's like. You know, when you're a mom, you'll understand. I don't think I mean that they'll understand the situation. I mean that they'll understand the love and the protection. Yeah, and that I'm not trying to tell them. I'm trying to love and protect them. Yeah. But I've got to remember for myself that the only way I can love and protect them is to let them do it their way. Yeah. As opposed to my way. Even though my way may or may not be better. Just saying. Just saying. But it's tough. It's tough. And I think that's where, this is why I love this topic and love talking about it, is because these are the things that we as moms don't talk about as much. Like, I'll call you and say, girl, these kids are driving me nuts. Here's what, and Lisa does this. I will say, there have been several times when I've discussed problems with my children, and you're on their side. Yeah. And you will tell me, and you're like, you got to hear them. That's not what they're saying. And I get defensive, and I think, I mean, that's me. It's just because I just want to love and protect the little suckers.
And you know, it's funny though, love it. It's funny how we give things definition. We'll say, I want to love and protect. And you actually should. This is where I said that this motherhood and parenting is about you. Yeah. I want to love and protect my kids. So what does that look like to you? Write it down. What does that look like? Well, it looks like when they're making mistakes, I want to stop it before it happens. So is that love and protection? Or is that control?
Yeah. See, that's a good point.
What is love and protection?
Lisa. That's good.
This is what I do. This is what I do to myself all the time.
I think you're right. Writing it down, and what does that look like? Because you're right. When I say love and protect, I want to keep them. And it's funny. I want to keep them from making the mistakes. Now, actually, I shouldn't say that. I will let them make mistakes. I am pretty good about that. Here's what love and protection looks like to me, where it's gotten me in trouble. All right. I am the sweetest person on the planet. My kids may disagree. I'm the sweetest person on the planet. Yeah. Until you mess with me or my kids. Yeah. And then I am not nice. Like, I can go from like super sweet to I'm going to cut a person. I'm going to cut a girl in about a second. Right. If you mess with my children. Right. And they have seen that. Yes. And I feel like I'm protecting them, and they're like, girl, mom, you come on now. Yeah. But it's, not in a crazy way sometimes, but I don't know. Maybe for me, that's what it looks like, is protecting them from hurt. But we can't.
You can't do that.
I'm talking myself through. I'm doing therapy with myself right here.
I'm talking myself. You can't. I think the thing about it is you have to, as parents, you have to go look at how you're defining parenthood. So for my kids, I'm the same way. But you have also to pay attention to your children. I've been that way for my kids. Well, like loving, protecting my kids is making sure da 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 da. Then I've stepped back, prayed a lot. I pray a lot.
Yes.
And surround myself with a great support group of women.
Same.
But I think I have to say, is this what they need? Looking at who they are.
That's a big question.
And also keeping open communication with my children. And I'll say to Bernard or Tyler, is this what you need from me right now? When
That's a good question, and that's
the
the same question we talked about in the communication episode with spouses and significant others is this what you need from me?
Is this what you need from me? Or I'll say, well, what do you need from me right now? Especially when my kids get to a certain point in age. But even with my grandchildren being 11 and 7, I ask them, what do you need from Gigi right now?
Yeah.
You know? And they'll say, well, Gigi, I just need you to listen to me. I don't need you to give me answers.
I just wrote that. What do you need from me? Or what do you need from me right now is such a powerful, simple, but a powerful question. And it relates to the motherhood thing too. Because I will say, I don't know that throughout my parenting journey, I stopped to ask that enough.
Yeah.
I may have asked it, but I definitely don't feel I've stopped. And I wonder how many people listening have asked that continually.
And it creates, like I said before in the last podcast we did, was that communication creates great intimacy. Because when I look at my sons or my grandchildren, I say, well, what do you need from me right now? What would be helpful for you in this situation? And a lot of times my sons say, well, Mom, they come down.
Yeah.
They instantly come down and say, well, Mom, what I really need is this right there. And I was like, okay, well, do you mind if I give you a few suggestions on this? There's a couple of things that I went through in my life, and you may be able to relate to it. I don't know. And it's like, yeah, sure, Mom, that'd be great. And I'll say this, and that. And they'll say, yeah, I get that. I get that. And I say, I just want you to know that I'm here.
So I love that. And I think it's so good. So what do you do if you're met with, when you ask that, when you say, what do you need from me right now? Mm-hmm. And the response is nothing. Or how are you? Fine. Because a lot of times I'll hear people talk about, and I've certainly witnessed this with my kids. It's the one word, fine. I'm fine. Yeah. How was your day? Good. What's up? Fine. What do you need from me right now? Nothing. How do you break past that one word?
Yeah. I know, fine. My boys say good.
Yeah.
Like, how you doing? Good.
Good. Yeah.
Everything's good.
How was school? Good.
Good. My grandkids too. Good. So what I do with my grandchildren, I'll say, so what was eventful about your day?
I did that. I've tried that. What was the best thing about your day? What was the most exciting thing about your day? What'd you have the most fun with? Nothing.
I know.
Nothing. Lunch. Yeah, I mean,
lunch was the most fun thing about my day.
Because I think these are all great tips, from a parenting and a rebirthing motherhood. Because I do believe it goes back to communication.
Yeah.
How do we break beyond because our children and grandchildren in today's world grew up with social media. I use social media a lot. I'll be the first one to say I hate it for kids.
Yeah,
I absolutely hate it for kids. I have fought my kids tooth and nail on this about the ages. I mean, my older kids weren't even allowed on it till they were 16, which I was the last parent on the entire planet to allow them on social. My youngest one, I don't let her have all the TikToks and the Snapchats and all this stuff. I think it's horrible for kids. I will defend that to my dying day.
Right.
I also think that's contributed to the one-word answers. It's fine because they're communicating in snippets, and there's no emotion, and it's all not intimate. It's all not real.
Right.
How do you break past that? How do we get past that?
Well, I think the thing about it is you got to find where your children do communicate. Sometimes it's not when you ask the question. Sometimes it's driving in the car and they're just talking. Like for sometimes my boys will do good. But then sometimes they really want to get into some type of conversation about something. Then I was like, oh, it's time to talk now. And so we start talking. And I may ask about something. And it was like, oh yeah, Mom, I was fine that day. I just didn't feel like being bothered. This happened at school. And I was like, oh, okay, I was just concerned. I was just concerned. I was wondering. It's like, yeah, it was just that or this. And then they'll talk about it. But finding when they want to communicate. What happens is that we live in our fear.
Yes.
It's like, if they're just saying fine, we're not going to know what's going on and what's happening and something,
it goes back to that protective gene.
It goes back to that protective. Sometimes controlling.
It's yeah. I'm going to go ahead and sign up for the guilty card on that one.
Oh, I have several. I got punched. They've punched my card many times.
Yeah.
And gave me new cards on the controlling part.
I'm a founding member.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah, I knew I saw you in that movie.
That's right. We were at the controlling support group.
Right, we were. My name's Lisa Washington. I am this old, and I have been controlling my kids for 30 years. Thank you very much.
But I think that's it. I don't know with you, with me, maybe it's the Southern thing. It was a learned behavior. I'm not going to lie to you.
Oh my gosh, it was definitely a learn. But it's like I think about. I want to go back to something you said. How we were raised. Now, I got to be honest. We got to be really honest. The way our kids respond, all that stuff was in our heads. We were just too scared to tell our mom and dad. So we were still the same kid, except our kids are in a era of communication and social media. Air how you feel. Put it out there. Let the world see it. So they're in that arena. We weren't in that arena. We just kept that in our heads. Or probably talk to our friends about it and say, oh, my God, I just hate my mom for that, blah, blah, blah. But other than that, but they had to be 3 states away so that they would even hear that. You said that, even in your mind. But our kids are still, they just communicate. They just say it.
They verbal vomit all the things that we were holding in our heads.
Because I definitely had that stuff in my head.
But here's the challenge, and this is another episode, but we did one on this recently. What I don't love about, and I've posted about this before, I've talked about this before, I'm adamantly opposed to cancel culture. I hate cancel culture. But the kids will just cancel you. They're like, I'm done. I'm not even going to talk to her because she's crazy. Right?
Cancel. I can't see that one.
People are canceling. They're like, I agree that they're communicating more.
Yeah.
But I feel like all right. So I think they're starting. Let me rephrase. I think they're starting the discussion. Right. So when you say they're communicating, I think they're saying.
Yeah.
Not communicating.
I think that's
and
right.
And what I mean by that is I do feel this generation is way more apt to say what they feel and say what they think than we were when growing up. However, what I feel this generation does not do well, or at least our kids' age, my kids' age, what I feel like they don't do well is have an intellectual dialogue about the issue. And I'm saying I probably don't do that well either with them, because there is a generational difference. So I feel like our generation kept it all in. We were stuffers.
Yes.
This generation's the verbal vomiters. They're getting it all out. Maybe the next generation will be the dialogue, will be the ones where the stuffers and the verbal vomiters can come together and have a dialogue. Because right now, I feel so many times, at least in my own experience and what I hear from friends, the kids just say it, but they can't have a discussion back and forth. They don't know how to have an intellectual discussion around whatever the challenge is. Well, I mean, am I off base on that? What do you think?
I think, because with my children, they say a lot, but we discuss.
Yeah, see, we haven't discussed.
But we started very young.
We
started very young with that.
So kids, my children, I apologize for not starting this 23 years ago. But I do think we can start now. I think you can start any day. So for me, that's kind of the takeaway is we as a family need to get better about communicating. We do communicate.
Yeah.
But I feel like the part that's lacking, at least in my family, about the parent-child dynamic is the understanding each viewpoint and where they're coming from, as opposed to just going, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with it. Because right now, for us, we both, this is how I feel. This is how you feel.
Yeah. No one's trying to understand.
No one's trying to understand.
It's what we talked about in the lab podcast about this won't look really beautiful, but to have it like, I want to understand why you feel that way and why you're coming across like that, or why those are your viewpoints. And then having it where there's no judgment, like, oh, I can totally see why you feel that way.
Right.
Like my kids say things to me. My son came to me and told me some things that he felt about some stuff. And my husband, I was like, oh, okay. And I thought, but you know what? This is how he lived this. This is how he processed this. And I don't need to take it personal. I can let my ego and say, honey, I'm sorry.
I did that in our last discussion. Kind of the I see why you feel. I see
totally
why you would
that.
feel. I'm not agreeing with it, but I could see why you feel that way. So I think
totally
I've started doing that. I think that's a good bridge. Started to cross that bridge.
Everybody wants to be heard and accepted. And when
For
people feel they're not heard or accepted, they shut down.
Yeah.
They're like, you don't hear me.
And that's what
you
we
don't
need to
accept me.
not do, I think, as a parent is shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's tough. It's because, a lot of parents have different parenting styles.
They do.
It's that's an opportunity to figure out the different style. I mean, I got the total opposite parenting style. Polar opposite. But I think that does contribute to dynamics all over. That's a whole nother show. That contributes to dynamics all over the place.
If we're, no matter what your dynamics are, we talked about this prior. It's communication, which creates great intimacy. If you guys are coming to the table, we're coming here to get together, to come together.
Come together is the key word.
We're here to come together.
We're not here to point fingers. We're not here to, and I think we can all do better at that. I'm saying, pointing the fingers back at myself on that one is coming together.
We're coming
and
together.
that's really that's the definition of communication.
It is.
So as you think about this rebirth of motherhood, that you will be writing about, I can't wait. I can't wait to read this book, girl. I might need an advanced copy of this one.
You'll get one for sure.
Right. But as you're describing the rebirth of motherhood, as someone who counsels people and counsels couples and counsels people like me who are still trying to figure this thing out called life.
You're amazing.
I'd say, well, thank you. I've learned so much, but it's because I think for me, I'm open to it. I'm open to feedback. I'm open to that. And that's the big thing is you, and I will seek it. You know that because I'll call you all like, here's what I said. Here's what they said. And you're like, here's where you went wrong. I'm like, dang it. Okay.
And that's okay.
But that's okay because you have to know because I think too many people have the yes friends. They're like, girl, those kids are crazy.
Yeah.
And I have those friends too.
Right.
And I know when I need to call them. Sometimes I just need a girl, those kids are crazy friend.
Sometimes you need that.
But when I need to grow and when I need to repair or work on relationships, that's what I do. So when you're thinking rebirthing of motherhood, what is your biggest piece of advice to moms, kids, parents, everybody? I mean, I know that's a big group, but what's your biggest piece of advice as we go through all these stages, which they're tougher than I think most people talk about?
I think for us as mothers, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be perfect, and parents, period. And I think we feel like when our kids are becoming what we were designed to help them be, these adults that can function in society and find their way and find who they are, when we start losing bits and pieces of that, we start to get afraid that we've lost motherhood and that we're not being a great mom anymore. That's not it. You will always be a mother. Always, always be a mother. To know that. My advice is take time out to find out what that looks like for you in every stage of that child's life. What does that look like for you today? You can always do that, but what does it look like for you today? And I think for us to embrace and honor that rebirthing of motherhood in all those different stages, because you will always be a mom.
I love that. I'm getting all geeshy. I do. That's so important. It is to think about what it looks like and be okay with letting go and what was and accepting what's new, which is tough for us sometimes.
It's
like I said, the love and protect gene's always there. Yeah. And it's, one thing I know for certain, I mean, my girls and I may fight, but I love them dearly and I know they love me, but they're going to be great functioning members of society. They're very independent, very strong, very, and it's funny because like a lot of the challenges, I'm like, girl, that's exactly how I raised them, because it's like I raised them to be strong and to stand. And actually my oldest, Bailey, told me that recently. She's like, you raised me to always say what I think and to always stand up for what I believe. I'm like, girl, I know I did. I'm proud of you, except for maybe not with mom. So it's tough, but you're right. It's letting go of that and making room for this next stage where I have raised three very strong.
And congratulations to you for that. Because in being this world, they needed a mom like you to do that. Yeah. And you should feel very encouraged by that.
Well, thank you.
You should.
I do. But it's so tough. And I think that's where as moms, we need to stick together and we need to hear the stories and to say it's okay. But to understand where you summed up great, to understand where you are in each of the different stages.
Yeah. And be okay with that and celebrate it. And it's also okay to grieve. Yeah. To grieve, because what we're doing, that's that fight, that's that pull. Yeah. It's okay to grieve that last stage. It's okay. Give it its time, and then go ahead and start celebrating this new place.
But like you said, the last stage, you're always, I'm fine with them leaving home and all that. Honestly, that's the part I'm like, because to me, I feel like they did it. We did it. You know, you're a functioning adult. And that's a great, like, I love that. I love that. I mean, well, I miss it, but you're right. Yeah. You're always going to be a mom.
Always.
They're always going to come. I call my mom all the time with stuff.
Exactly.
And so you're always going to be a mom.
Always a mama.
Love it. Love it. Lisa, thank you so much for being with us again. You are always just a breath of fresh air, but two, just so much wisdom and insight. So I'm thankful for you once again, my friend. Glad you could be here, help us moms. So we'd love to hear your comments. Drop us some notes. Let us know what you're thinking. And most importantly, just be open, have some conversations, and remember to ask people what it is, especially your kids, what it is they need from you right now. So until next week, everybody, make it a great one. Keep pushing forward, and we will see you again for another episode of Renew.